What's up, bitches? We are back. It is week 3, and it's time to do our check-in for The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Week 3 was entitled Recovering a Sense of Power. What Julia discusses really expands on what was already talked about in week 1 and week 2. So we had a sense of safety, a sense of identity, and in week 3 with the topic of recovering a sense of power, we're really expanding on the ideas and topics discussed and further learning how to utilize those in order to remain authentic, nourish, again, one of our favorite words here, our inner child who is our creator, the creative that lives within inside of us, and learn how to allow ourselves to create without internalized shame, without spiraling into self-doubt, without self-sabotaging our creative endeavors, and understanding that we need to recognize all of these negative things around us, negative things that people say, and how we can combat those without pretending like they don't matter, without pretending like they aren't a big deal, and not letting our ego get in the way of that and pushing it to the side. Like we discussed last week, recognizing the emotion, sitting in it, feeling it, and understanding that it's okay to be hurt, to be upset, to be angry. It's nothing to be ashamed about. And anger and shame is actually probably 2 of the biggest topics of week 3 when it comes to recovering a sense of power. Julia also discusses how through overcoming internalized shame, through embracing our anger and allowing ourselves to be angry, that we can then further grow as an artist and further our dreams, our goals, our passion as an artist as well. So the first major thing discussed is anger, and essentially that anger is fuel. Anger tells us when we've been betrayed. Anger tells us when we've betrayed ourselves. Anger is kind of like our loyal friend who's there for us and tells it like it is. And it's not always a nice thing or nice words or nice thoughts, but they're important and they need to be recognized. We need to be okay with our anger and use it again as fuel, as something that's a useful tool in our lives, something that can be acted upon, not be acted out. So we don't take it out on other people. We don't use our anger to shame ourselves, to knock ourselves down, but we use it as a way to further our creativity. What is our anger trying to convey to us? What is our anger really telling us? There's usually messages in our anger where we can identify the real root of the issue and then use that to find a solution instead of it just being used as some type of punching bag or something to project onto other people. So Julia says anger is fuel, so we have to listen to it. Anger is meant to be listened to. Anger is meant to be respected. Anger is a map. It shows us our boundaries. It shows us where we want to go. It shows us where we've been and why we didn't like it. And it also can point the way. Again, it is a map. Points the way. It does not point a finger. So again, anger is not there to blame others. It's not there to shame others or ourselves. It's meant to guide us and give us direction. And she does say that anger is a sign of health. And when we listen to our anger, like I was saying previously, it shows us things. It reveals truths to us. So a couple of her examples here are, blast him. I could make a better film than that. This anger says, you want to make movies, you need to learn how. Another one, I can't believe it. I had this idea for a play 3 years ago and she's gone and written it. This anger says, stop procrastinating. Ideas don't get opening nights. Finished plays do. Start writing. Another one, that's my strategy he's using. This is incredible. I've been ripped off. I knew I should have pulled that material together and copyrighted it. This anger says it's time to take your own ideas seriously enough to treat them well. Again, we see that there's types of almost like a secret message in accusations in these thoughts that we have, especially when we're angry about other people. And this kind of goes back on the topic that we discussed in week 1, which is the audacity. A lot of times we see people who have audacity, who have the confidence coincidence, and we feel angry towards that. We feel jealous. And so we want to blame them. We want to get angry at them for doing what we can't do. But we can do it. We should do it. And it's time that we take accountability and actually commit to our passions and what we want to do rather than just being angry that we're not doing it. She continues by saying, it tells us we are being reborn and birthing hurts. That hurt makes us angry. However, anger is a tool and it is not a master. It does not control you. You can tap into it and draw upon it and again, use it as a type of fuel, something to fill you creatively, to give you answers to maybe what you're missing, where you feel you're lacking. And she says, sloth, apathy, and despair are the enemy. And as I said previously, anger is not. Anger is our friend, not a nice friend, not a gentle friend, but a very loyal friend. It will always tell us that it is time to act in our best interest. Anger is not the action itself, but it is action's invitation. I think it's very insightful what she says about anger and how it can be used as a tool and be used as fuel for your creative tank. And I think it's important to recognize that a lot of the times we do get angry about things and we blame others and we point the finger. And whether or not it's true, we sometimes don't try and understand what the real root cause of the anger is, where it's coming from, and why something is making us feel so fired up. And so I think it's a really good strategy to accept that anger is a natural emotion and it's okay to feel that way. But also, when you are in those moments of anger, really trying to understand where it's coming from. Am I really angry that he made a film and the film was good? Or am I angry that I haven't made a film and I haven't used my passion of filmmaking to make a film that I'm confident about and that I feel is good and I want to share with other people? And that's tea, y'all. Okay, moving on, we revisit the idea of synchronicity. And this is definitely a challenging part of this chapter if you maybe don't consider yourself spiritual, if you don't believe in God, or if maybe you consider yourself an atheist. But I did find this caused me to really think about those things, and it kind of challenged my way of thinking in that area, and definitely something to be introspective about. And I think this also kind of ties into previously when we discussed how a lot of the times we reject opportunities given to us, we reject gifts given to us, we reject knowledge given to us because we either feel like we're not worthy or we pass it off as a coincidence or just kind of sheer luck. And we use those excuses as to why it's not a big deal or it's not something to take seriously. We should doubt the motives behind it. We should expect it to come with some type of catch or something bad's about to happen. You know, good things can't last forever. So that's some of what we discussed when it comes to synchronicity. Also, a lot of what she talks about is manifestation and putting plan into action, really speaking it into existence. She uses the term life is what you make of it. She points out that when you help yourself and when you treat yourself well and you nourish yourself, that oftentimes that results in those positive aspects popping up in other areas of your life. She mentions like how people say, you know, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it.
Careful what you wish for because you just might get it all. You just might get it all.
That's sounding kind of like a threat or something negative. What if that's actually a positive thing? You can wish or pray for something and you just might get it.
Just might get it. Just might get it.
But why is that so scary? That all being said, she starts off by asking, you know, why do we question those things? She said, answered prayers or wishes are scary. They imply responsibility. You asked for it and now you've got it. So what are you going to do with it? And this is where she mentions the phrase of watch out for what you pray for, you just might get it. And she says, rather than looking at these things, again, as a coincidence, as pure luck, as something that's just not a big deal, it just so happened to have occurred, she says, why not think of them as synchronicity? And she has a couple of examples. I'll read like two of them. So she says, a woman admits to a buried dream of acting. At dinner the next night, she sits beside a man who teaches beginning actors. Another example, a woman wonders how to rent a woman wonders how to rent a rare film she has never seen. She finds it at her neighborhood bookstore 2 days later. So we look at those examples and she wants us to challenge why we dismiss them as pure coincidence attributes, why we don't think of them as something that we've actually spoken to existence. And she challenges that thought by saying, well, if we do accept that maybe it's not a coincidence, that we did ask for this, we said it was going to happen, we prayed for it, we wished for it, and it did, and we were given the opportunity, why does it scare us so much to believe that it was an intentional act, that it was an act that we were responsible for because we asked for it? Why is that so scary to us? She says here that in my experience, we're much more afraid that there might be a God or a higher power than we are that there might not be. And in a sense, she says, if we think that there's no higher power whatsoever, no being who is flowing this creativity through us, then it relieves us of all accountability, of all responsibility, and we can just be apathetic and willy-nilly and, oh, that's just how life goes and that's just the way it is. And she says, if God, by which I do not necessarily mean a single-pointed Christian concept, but an all-powerful and all-knowing force, does not exist, well, then we're all off the hook, aren't we? There's no divine retribution, no divine consolation. The question of expectations interests me, she says. If there is no God or higher power, or if that God is indeed disinterested in our puny little affairs, then everything can roll along as always, and we can feel quite justified in declaring certain things impossible or other things unfair. And again, she says this can lead to apathy, as in, what's the use? Why try changing anything? Why bother at all? And she says this is the use. Creativity in art is the use. And that maybe accepting that there is a higher power, a God, whatever you want to call it, maybe by accepting that and acknowledging it, that we in fact actually have more control over our lives than we originally were led to believe. She says, the jig in short is up. God knows that the sky's the limit. Anyone honest will tell you that possibility is far more frightening than impossibility, that freedom is far more terrifying than any prison. And we just talked about this last week, where we're comfortable in complacency, we're comfortable in hurt, we're comfortable in our trauma, and change is terrifying. Taking the risk and it actually working out is scary, because there's always the thought of failure, there's always the thought it's not going to go the way I want it to. Or really, what might be the scariest thing for people is just being vulnerable and having other people see you and hear what you have to share. And a lot of that is rooted in shame, and we will touch on that in just a moment. But continuing with this discussion of synchronicity, as I was saying before, she says life is what we make of it. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door shall be opened, as Jesus Christ would say. And she says, is it any wonder we discount answered prayers or wishes? We call it coincidence, we call it luck, we call it anything but what it is. The hand of God or good, whatever, activated by our own hand when we act in belief of our truest dreams, when we commit to our own soul. She calls this synchronicity, some call it serendipity, whatever you choose to call it. Once you begin your creative recovery, you may be startled to find it cropping up everywhere else in your life. And it's unsurprising if you try to discount it, because it's threatening. And again, it just ties back into the shame, to the feeling of you're not worthy of this, that there's just no way it would happen to somebody like you. This only happens to this person. But why not? Why can't it happen to you? Why don't you deserve it? So to me, a lot of this is, like I was saying, manifestation. Saying that something is going to happen, that you will do something, that you want this thing, and it will come to be. And also the phrase that she touched on in the very first week, which is leap and the net will appear. Have the audacity and just watch what possibilities and what opportunities can happen when you stop being so afraid of just doing. Continues, and she says, in my experience, the universe falls in with worthy plans, and most especially with festive and expansive ones. Understand that the what must come before the how. First choose what you would do, then the how will usually just fall into place. So we need to just gently keep pushing and pushing that door open, so that more things can happen to us, so that more opportunities can be brought in our path and we can seize them. And that we must be willing to reach for our dreams, our goals, and our passions, or else they'll never ever happen, and you won't even have the chance to fail if you don't even do it. And I think that's really something that you have to radically accept as an artist. Your art will never ever amount to anything if all you do is keep it to yourself in the comfort of your own home and you never ever try. It's imperative that you leap and allow the net to appear. So we move on to shame. shame. And in my eyes, shame is probably the crux of why we are the way that we are, why we treat other people the way we treat them, and why we are so opposed to allowing ourselves to indulge in things that make us happy. And she starts it off pretty funny. She's like, so some of you are thinking, if it were that easy to take action, I wouldn't even be reading this book. And she says, those of us who get bogged down by fear before action are usually being sabotaged by an older enemy, shame. Shame is a controlling device. Shaming someone is an attempt to prevent the person from behaving in a way that embarrasses us. Essentially, I think a lot of people do this unintentionally by projecting their insecurities onto other people. Let's say you would feel insecure wearing a bright pink lipstick and you would feel super ugly wearing that color, right? And so you see your friend wearing it and you might say like, oh, well, are you sure you like that color? Or like, oh, I could never wear a lipstick like that. And while that may not be your intention is to shame that person, what you have now done is instilled that thought into their head and possibly influenced an insecurity, because now they're going to look in the mirror and say, well, maybe they're right. Like, is this ugly? Should I feel bad for wearing this? And so we really need to be conscious. We really need to be mindful, to be conscious of how we're speaking to other people and how we can unintentionally cause a lot of pain and shame in others. This is probably one of my favorite things that we've talked about so far, because I think a lot of this resonates with everybody and especially me. I mean, so much of this I can relate to. She says that making a piece of art may feel a lot like telling a family secret. What will they think of me once they know this? Or a lot of the times this stems from childhood shame, how maybe parents or teachers or whoever has shamed you for just exploring your curiosities, for just having the audacity to be creative, whether it be socially, sexually, spiritually. She says, how dare you? Angry adults often rage at an innocent child who has stumbled onto a family secret. And she expands on this by saying, when people do not want to see something, they get mad at the one who shows them. They kill the messenger. A child from an alcoholic home gets in trouble scholastically or sexually. The family is flagged as being troubled, and the shame is then brought upon the child. But is the child the one who actually brought the shame or at fault? No. The child brought shameful things to light. The family shame predated and caused the child's distress. What will the neighbors think is a shaming device aimed at continuing a conspiracy of illness. And if you've been in abusive situations with family, financially, verbally, emotionally, physically, so much of the hurt and pain that adults cause ends up being blamed on the child and taken out on the child. And that can ruin you as an adult. The act of making art exposes a society to itself. Art brings things to light. It illuminates us. It sheds light on our lingering darkness. It casts a beam into the heart of our own darkness and says, see? And I think a lot of what she's talking about is vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, which in and of itself is actually an act of bravery, to be vulnerable and to let others see you. So expanding on that, she says, art opens the closets, airs out the cellars and attics. It brings healing. If a child has ever been made to feel foolish for believing in himself, herself, themselves as talented, the act of actually finishing a piece of art will be fraught with internal shaming. So again, we go back to this place of shame being brought upon a child, whether it be because they're expressing themselves, whether it's because they have confidence in something. Well, how dare you think that you're that good? Like, you think you're better than others? All of this stems from childhood and what we were shamed for. I thought this was so relatable, that the act of actually finishing a piece of art will be fraught with internal shaming, and therefore we self-sabotage due to internal shame. We procrastinate because of internalized shame. She says many artists begin a piece of work, get well along in it, and then find as they near completion that the work seems mysteriously drained of merit. It's no longer worth the trouble. To therapists, this sudden urge of disinterest, it doesn't matter, is a routine coping device employed to deny pain and ward off vulnerability. She says they call it detachment, but it's actually a numbing out. And she says, an example, he forgot my birthday. Oh well, no big deal. I will say fully with my chest that that is something I have struggled with since I can remember, is intellectualizing how I feel and how I think, or just completely passing it off, shrugging it off. It's not a big deal, or like, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm confident I can deal with. In a way, you think like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter, you know. But at the same time, when something hurts and when people are shaming you or criticizing you or trying to bring you down, it's inevitably going to cause some type of emotion in you, and it's okay that you feel that way. It does not make you weak. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It's not something to be ashamed about. And again, it's the fact that we are not allowing ourselves to feel very real and very valid emotions and recognize that we've been hurt in some way, and that the only way to move past it and to really grow and accept it is to feel it, acknowledge it, sit in that emotion. One of the things I struggle with the most in music is when I know I'm about to be finished with it, I will procrastinate. I won't want to do it anymore. I won't want to work on it. I'll be over it. I'll be tired of working on it. And I mean, I think a lot of it does have to do with internalized shame. And I can say that I definitely remember throughout childhood this importance of being humble, and that you're not supposed to gloat. Especially as a girl, you know, you shouldn't feel too confident or self-assured, because then you're being selfish, you're being a bitch, holier than thou, you think you're better than others. But being confident and being assured and feeling like you're good at something doesn't mean that you think everyone else is trash and that they suck and that you're the bee's fucking knees and no one else is. But I think a lot of the times girls especially are just taught to be so humbled and to not be sure of themselves, and it translates to such negativity and such insecurity and shame as an adult. And Julia says, a lifetime of this kind of experience in which needs for recognition are routinely dishonored teaches a young child that putting anything out for attention is a dangerous act. She then begins to equate how some of this shame is due to unwarranted and invalid criticism that we've received. Creatives are wrongly shamed, and because of this, we learn that we are wrong to create at all. So continuing from what we were saying earlier, she says, buried under it doesn't matter, the shame lives on still, waiting to attach itself to our new efforts. This very act of attempting to make art creates shame. Because we've been silenced or been told that we're being cocky, or because we wanted someone to just acknowledge what we were doing and say that it was good or that they were proud of us, and we didn't get that. All of these things can culminate into feeling shame just for wanting to create or for creating itself. And she says, this is why many a great student film is never sent off to festivals where it can be seen, why good novels are destroyed or live in desk drawers. This is why plays do not get sent out, and why talented actors don't audition. Does this not tie back into the audacity? Does this not tie back into not allowing apathy to take over? Does this not tie back into finding excuses as to why we shouldn't share our passions and why we shouldn't put ourselves out there? She says, this is why artists may feel shame at admitting their dreams. Shame is re-triggered in us as adults because our internal artist is always our creative child. Because of this, making a piece of art, again, may cause us to feel shame. And then from here, as I was saying, she kind of starts going into criticism and how we need to be able to identify what is real and valid critique and what isn't. And we also need to realize that certain things can only be shared at certain instances or at certain times or with certain people, because even if it's a best friend, even if it's a very supporting loved one, they still might be very critical in a way that's not actually effective, in a way that's not kind, regardless if that was their intention or not. And so we need to know who we can share what with. We need to know at what time we should share something. We need to know that, for instance, if you're sharing a rough draft of something, that we need someone who's going to look at it from a creative lens of they can see the potential, they can see where it's going, and then they can then give you advice that's positive and actually is helpful. Like, oh yeah, that is a good idea. Or like, oh, they have a point there. Yeah, let me try that. And not something that's going to be like, oh, well, this is actually really boring. Or like, oh, you spelled this wrong here. Because it's like, in what is that even helping to begin with? No, it's just making us feel bad about ourselves. Of course, we have to still be able to take valid criticism. Not all criticism is shaming. She says, the criticism that damages us is that which disparages, dismisses, ridicules, or condemns. It is frequently vicious, but vague and difficult to refute. This is the criticism that damages. So again, we have to learn to be self-protective. We have to learn how to identify good criticism from bad. And as I was saying previously, it also means that we need to learn where and when to seek out the right criticism. And when it comes to unfair criticism, bad criticism, we have to learn how to comfort our artist child. We have to learn how to recognize it and not just say it doesn't matter matter, not be apathetic, but to say instead, no, they're wrong and this is not helpful. That I am a good artist. I am a brave artist. I am doing well. This is a good piece of artwork. It is good that I'm starting this project. We have to learn how to do that. We have to learn that we cannot deny it and stuff our feelings when we have been artistically savaged, but to combat them and to still know that we are good at what we do and use affirmations to heal that pain rather than ignore it. As artists, we must learn to create our own safe environments. We cannot rely on other people to do that for us, and we have to learn how to protect ourselves again from shame. And I really love these next two excerpts. She says, by telling our shame secrets around our art and telling them through our art, we release ourselves and others from darkness. However, this release is not always welcome. We must learn that when our art reveals a secret of the human soul, those watching it may try to shame us for making it because they see something in themselves, because they see truth in this. They, remember what we were talking about earlier, they get angry about it and they say shame on you or how dare you. And as we've been saying, it is at these times we must be very firm with ourselves and not pick up the first doubt. We simply cannot allow the first negative thinking to take hold. Taking in the first doubt is like picking up the first drink for an alcoholic. Once in our system, the doubt will take on another doubt and another, and you will spiral and spiral and spiral and spiral. The only antidote for shame is self-love and self-praise. You have to tell yourself that you will heal and you will grow. And then finally, we end week 3 with growth. And really, this is taking all of what we learned, all of the negativity, how we combat it, identifying our emotions, why we feel these things, why anger is important, why feeling is important, all of this, and how we use that to grow creatively and grow as an artist and keep excelling in our creative recovery. So Julia says that growth is an erratic forward movement, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you must be very gentle with yourself. Growth occurs in spurts. Sometimes you will lie dormant. Do not be discouraged. Just think of it as resting. Marathon runners suggest you log 10 slow miles for every fast one, and the same holds true for creativity. Easy does it, or easy accomplishes it. If you will hew to a practice of writing your morning pages and doing one kind thing to yourself every day, you may begin to notice a slight kindness of heart. You may begin to notice the world doubling those acts of kindness towards you. And she says to practice being kind to yourself in small, concrete ways. Practice saying yes to such help. And she ends this by saying, experiment with solitude. Check in with yourself. Have quiet time. Ask yourself how you really are feeling and be honest. And she says, yes, I am asking you to baby yourself. As a creative being, you will be more productive when coaxed than when bullied. So stop trying to be so tough and cynical and intellectually chilly, you know, like the mysterious brooding artist. Stop trying to be so pretentious. Let go of your ego. And what have we been saying? Nourish your creative child, your creative self, your inner child. And that's week 3, y'all. Assignments and tasks. In summation, a lot of the tasks were revisiting a lot of your childhood accomplishments, 5 traits in yourself as a child. One of them was about your childhood bedroom. Some of them were speaking about habits and how maybe you have some habits that are detrimental to your well-being, or what she calls rotten habits, and are just kind of time wasters. They don't do anything productive or actually helpful for you. Most of the other tasks were about people you admire, friends you admire, what kind of qualities and characteristics you like in these people, and identifying those and really just thinking on why those are so important to you and why you care about those qualities so much. And finally, then one of them was what she calls an inner compass, and essentially this was using one of what she calls an artist brain activity. So previously she talked about how sometimes like there's these mundane or monotonous activities we can do that actually saturate our creativity, feed our creativity. So maybe just driving, running, painting, scrubbing your bathroom. Try to take an hour to do something like that and just kind of see what happens and see if anything creative happens to you. I did actually feel pretty good about week 3. Like I felt this week was one of the easiest as far as the tasks and assignments went. I felt pretty inspired. I really liked what she talked about, and I felt like most of the assignments were really engaging, and I enjoyed doing them, diving into the subjects she discussed. One thing is I did do all of my morning pages pages. And as I said, this was probably the easiest week. Even if I did not do them first thing in the morning, I won't say that it was always the first thing that I did, but I always did. And I actually had like a couple of weird dreams, and I wrote those in quite great of detail in my morning pages. That is all I will say, because I'm not supposed to share them. My artist date, like I was saying before, I do feel like I was putting too much expectations on it, or thinking it had to be like this great huge thing, or if I didn't have 2 hours to do something, I just wasn't gonna do it. So anyways, I actually bought a coloring book. And I already had Prismacolor colored pencils, because, I mean, I used to do a lot of art and drawing in high school and stuff. I literally just sat down for like an hour and a half one day. I put on some music and I would just color. It took me a couple of days to finish one of the pages, because I was just like really focused on like what I wanted it to look like. And so this is one that I finished. That was fun, and I enjoyed it. And as always, she asked, did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? So these things are kind of small and silly, but I mean, in a way, I mean, is it not synchronicity? I do competitive karaoke, for those who don't know me. I've been doing it, I think this is my 5th season. And so whenever you sign up for the new season, it always asks you if you want to be a team leader, right? And so this time when I signed up, our leader, his name is TJ. Shout out TJ, let's go. In the box, I was like, well, if TJ ever decided to take a break or something, then like, sure, I'll be a team leader. And then lo and behold, what happens? I receive an email telling me, oh, hey, thanks for being the team lead for Team Yellow, the Golden Showers. Yes, our team name is the Golden Showers. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll be damned. So, I mean, hey, I feel like that was synchronicity. A second one was that they did a remake of the original Harvest Moon game that was released on GameCube. If you know, you know. I've seen it for a long time, but that shit was like $50, $60. And I'm like, bruh. One, when I originally bought that game for GameCube, that shit was like $20 fucking. Okay, I'm not doing that shit. I was like, oh, well, I've always wanted to play that. Like, you know, I would like to have that game, but not if it's that much money. And then what happens? It's on my free monthly game list for PlayStation, because I'm part of the PlayStation Plus extra thingy. And so boom, it was there for free. So I was like, well, damn. So I downloaded that, and now I'm getting to play it, and I didn't have to pay for that shit. I mean, yes, I'm paying a monthly subscription, but you know what I mean. So those are like 2 things that I wrote down that were kind of small, but I mean, still, anything counts. It doesn't need to be some huge life-changing event. Finally, she says, were there any issues this week that were significant for your recovery? Describe them. And again, my main issues this week were that I ran into so many fucking speed bumps trying to record my fucking YouTube video. This time it was different. I was recording just using like the basic photo booth on my MacBook. I wasn't using like an actual video software, so that's probably why, I guess. But I swear to God, when I tell you, like, I had recorded like a whole 50-minute long, you know, yapping session, it didn't save. It was a corrupted file. So that I honestly almost had a fucking mental breakdown. I'm not gonna lie. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna re-record, but in smaller segments, right? So I'm re-recording, and I'm doing like maybe 10 minutes at a time. Those weren't saving either. They were still saving as corrupted files. So like at this point, I've tried to record the same fucking thing like at least 5 or 6 times, and I was losing my mind, y'all. I was losing my mind. So finally I was like, all right, I'm going to record in like 3 to 4 minute increments, and it's gonna be tedious and stupid, but if this is what it takes to save the fucking videos, then so be it. So after I don't know how many attempts, I just did it by increments, and it was really, really frustrating, and I just was not inspired. Like I half-assed editing the video, because I just wanted it to be done. If you watch it, I think you can kind of tell the longer the video goes on, the more and more frustrated and exasperated I sound. But that was definitely like my major issue. So anyway, so I did end up doing it, and you have to stay committed, and you have to keep doing it. Stop finding excuses to self-sabotage. I did. And she actually brings this up in week 4. I know we're not there yet, but I'm just gonna like kind of tease this, and we'll talk about it next week. But I've been really, really like remembering my dreams in great detail. And like I said, I've been writing my morning pages about my dream. And lo and behold, she actually mentions this in chapter 4. So that's just a teaser. We will revisit that in the future. But one of the assignments was describe your childhood room. If you wish, you may sketch this room. What was your favorite thing about it? What's your favorite thing about your room right now? If it's nothing, do something to change it. Add something that maybe is from your childhood that will make you like your room more. So I did do a little bit of sketching. I didn't do like a full sketch, because I was like, oh. But this is like my bed, and I used to have a dog. Old English sheepdog. His name was Shaggy. And that my bed was literally right against the window like this, and he liked to sleep in the bed a lot. And then like Sailor Moon and Lizzie McGuire were two of my biggest passions, among other things. I mean, I was an anime stan and manga stan when I was younger, but I did that. But I described my childhood bedroom, which was kind of fun. Like, some of this will age me. Like I wrote here, I also had one of those tube TVs where you still use the RGB video cables to connect stuff to, like my GameCube, for instance. And if you know, you know, with my GameCube, I also had Game Shark so that I could cheat at a bunch of games, and I used those a lot, especially when I played Animal Crossing on GameCube. I used Game Shark all the fucking time. So that was fun. I actually do like my room. I mean, there's more that I want to do to it as far as decorations go and organizing things, but I mean, it is pretty nice, so I actually didn't have like too many complaints there. Another of the tasks was 5 traits I liked in myself as a child, and I wrote introspective, curious, willing, compassionate, and idealistic. Some other ones were like 5 childhood accomplishments, 5 childhood foods. One of my childhood accomplishments I put was memorize the entirety of the first Shrek movie. So me and my best friend at the time had memorized that entire movie, and we performed it for her parents. I was Donkey and she was Shrek. Another one was I won a rollerblading race at Skate and Fun Zone. You know. They used to have homeschooling nights, fun fact, every Thursday, and I was homeschooled for 7 years, by the way. The only assignment I had like trouble with that I actually didn't even finish really was she had you list 5 people you admire and then 5 people you secretly admire. And I was having like trouble with this because I was like, I just don't know that there's people that I secretly admire. Like, I don't necessarily feel embarrassed or ashamed by people I admire. But 2 of the people I put that I secretly admire, because I guess it's like cringy, was Baby No Money, Alex Gamushian, and this YouTuber I really like, Drew Gooden. Some people might find like their internet presence like as a way to kind of discredit them or think like they shouldn't be taken, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I guess those would be people I secretly, but I mean, I don't feel embarrassed by that. And then the 5 people I said that I admire are Megan Thee Stallion, Chappell Roan, Doechii, Drew Afualo, Alec Menon. So that was that. And then she had 5 people I wish I had met who are dead, and then 5 people who are dead that I like to hang out with. So the 5 people who are dead that I wish I had met: Heath Ledger, Amy Winehouse, Taylor Hawkins, Betty White, George Harrison. 5 people who are dead that I'd like to hang out with: my Uncle Larry, my grandmother, Heath Ledger, Jesus, Whitney Houston, and then honorable mention Robin Williams. So those were some of the assignments. And I don't know, yeah, like I said, I felt good about this week for the most part. I really liked the discussion. Especially when it came to shame and conquering that and being okay with it, I thought was really, really good. That was week 3. I'll catch y'all bitches on the flip side. And week 4, we'll see what it has in store for us. In the meantime, in between time, peace out, y'all. Leap in the net will appear. You know what I'm saying?